Hello and welcome to another Lumion 8 live stream tutorial, guys. This is Chris Welton from CweltonDesign, and in this tutorial we're going to cover the new way to save scenes in Lumion 8, or at least the way that things have changed. So I'm going to go ahead and open a scene here to take us to start off. Looks like Lumion's still opening the scene. So before, this seems like something really basic, but I wanted to explain a couple concepts that I've been working on, trying to help demonstrate how saving in Lumion works, how it used to work, and how they've permanently changed it now. This is something they've been working on for a little bit, slowly kind of moving over to. You know, normally you have an application like SketchUp or 3ds Max, you save your file to a .skp or a .max file, and you're done. That's it. That's the file. Or Revit, the same thing, .rvt. And in Lumion, it's always been a little weird at first. So when Lumion, those who've used Lumion, I think before version 6, when they started really changing this, Lumion transferring a save scene was only a Pro feature, and if you didn't have Pro, you had to actually jump into the My Documents folder and dig out the information from the scene and pull that and place that into your own, the new computers, My Documents. It was pretty painful. And then this ability came up. When you exited, it said save and quit on all versions. I did not have Pro when I first started. And now when you save in Lumion 8, the only way to save now is it forces you to write a file, an LS8 file. So it's the same type of file as it's always been when you export a scene, but instead of calling it export now, that is the new save standard. Before things were organized in a certain way, and they still are, but before, when you save a scene, what you're saving is the Lumion side of things. Now, I've made a chart that I want to show off really quick. This is a little chart I made that I wanted to go over really quick. This took me a little bit to understand, and luckily Lumion has made this simpler, but it still functions in a similar way. So we have two things going on when we save in our scenes. First is the Lumion save data, and the other one is our imported models that are inside, they're located in our scene. That can also be in other scenes too. Like if you have a car you happen to reuse a lot, or a certain other object, I don't know, a construction vehicle, or whatever custom library object you've created, when you have it in one scene and then you have that scene all set up, if you go into another scene and reuse it and then change the color and a couple things in it, if you go back to your old scene, understand that that same instance, that same model that you had in there before, will be changed to how you've updated it in the new scene. So if you have a certain file in the rendering from an old project, and you had a bright red car in the front, and you have that saved and everything, and then you'd use that in another project and you tone it down to a gray, when you open the old project again, it's going to be a gray car now. So I hope that's understood. So everything you do when you edit materials, when you're editing the materials and properties of these imported models, not the location or scale, but material wise, all those changes are saved like instantly, which is a really good thing. And we're going to talk about what things do not get saved all the time and what things need to be saved. Well, let's just use this chart. Okay, so when I say Lumion save data, that includes all of the library content, everything in here, all of these trees. When you install Lumion, it's a huge file. It's like 16, 18 gigs now. It's enormous because all of this content is being saved onto that computer. So when you save this American beech tree, it had with whatever name it's called to specifically, you know, It was American Beach M2HQ. That isn't saved. The geometry and texture maps of this tree are not actually saved in your LS8 file. But what it's doing is the Lumion is saying, okay, well, this tree is located, you know, at this position X, this position Y, this position Z, at this scale, it's at 1, say it's at 1.0293. It's going to remember that, it's going to remember the height, it's going to remember its rotation, and I imagine it also would remember if it's in a group or not. And then when you open another computer, it's just going to call to that same library that you've had to install with Lumion and place that object there. So it keeps things a little lighter. So everything in the Lumion library here, cars, sounds, effects, lights, house, outdoor objects, furniture, people, all of those things are saved in the Lumion scene file. And in fact, anything you do in, let's go back to the image, anything you do in here are lost if you don't save. So for whatever reason, you go out of Lumion really quick without saving, Windows updates, drivers crash, things freeze, or, you know, the worst things can happen. If you haven't saved, anything in this Lumion save data is lost. It's gone. So save often. And so along with the objects, like I explained, their locations, what objects are located there, what their definitions are, you know, also open street maps. So let's pull this on one side and this on the other. So anything in your terrain, so if you've raised up, that's actually geometry there, that's not actual Lumion terrain. So anything you do here that's all saved in the Lumion side of things. Then we get into scenes. Sorry, let's maximize this again. So these scenes that we've set, from the cameras to the, you know, knowing the camera is located here and here and it's 8 seconds, to the effects that are located on here, sharpen is set to 0 in this case. All of these things, all of these clips, all of these photos, that's the things that are saved in the Lumion side. So if you've edited, if we've saved it and then we decided to create this awesome new view right here, we got the effects perfect and everything. If Lumion stopped working, or we closed Lumion before saving, it would be gone. So I want to help you understand that. This is really important and can relieve a lot of stress understanding how these things are saved. Whereas on the imported model side, so let's take a look at what's an imported model in this scene. And what you're seeing right here, all of that, so that's the Lumion side. All of that you're seeing there is Lumion by itself, and then this is the imported model side. Now I'm going to use our undo right there. So anything we do to here, like say I have a brick material on there, and I scale it up, and I spend all this time getting everything to look just right for my scene, which is usually the fine-tuning things that you're doing. You're spending time with the materials that's way too strong, get it just right there, and all of a sudden crash or freeze or whatever happens, Windows update. When you reopen this, all these changes that you just did are actually saved. It's kind of like they're being saved, auto-saved continually. So there's a few instances when that hasn't worked for me, but almost all the other times this is basically being saved like every time you do something. Every time you move that slider, now it's saved at this value. So all of these values in the materials, the maps you've added, I've added my own materials in here, normal diffuse map, normal map with gloss, all of those things are converted to a Lumion file. Don't worry about what it is, but that's all associated with this material with the imported model side of this chart here. So like it says custom material maps, even when you assign, say, to a Lumion standard glass, or you assign this to, what a bad example, but a Lumion material brick, all of that data and information on the model is saved pretty much, it's like auto saved every time you adjust it. So it says here all changes are saved automatically. And as I mentioned before, if I had this same model in another project though, everything I'm doing here is changing there too. So it's kind of like it's an X reference. It really is. It's an X reference. It's linked separately. And so everything is being updated in here, but it's good to understand. It's good to understand what things are being saved and will be saved if an event happens, and what things will be lost if you do not save often. In the end, it's always save often. So let's just go really quickly to save. Just notice that it's not, before we had like a save, a quick save, or a save scene. And all that was doing is it was saving the Lumion side. And since the imported object side is always being updated, that's not really a part of it. And then you had the option to kind of export or save as a new file. So now you'll notice that we only have a save as. So if I want to save this file, call it whatever, that's going to save that out. And what this is, what this ls8 file is, let's see, was this, I think this is where I'm saving it. I think it just showed up right there. There's our ls8. So 409 megabytes. Good size project. So what that has done inside of this are both of these things, from the Lumion side to the imported model side. And I'll probably need to do a tutorial covering merging scenes, because that's definitely something that can catch a lot of people up. But one thing to understand is this is it's a backup. It's the word's not coming to me right now. It's documented it's archived. This is like an archive save. So you can save like every week on a major project. And what's going to happen is, even if you really something happens and it really messes up the project, it's super slow and you just don't have time, you can't figure out what happened, but it was working before. If you were to go and open this scene again, like this actual one that you saved out, what happens is when you open it, the Lumion save data will return, but when it comes to the model geometry and materials, that's going to be overwritten to whatever was archived before. So what you could do is, you could say in that instance, you have a project that you saved a week ago, and you've made changes, but things are, you kind of want to go back. What you can do is you can save right now as, this week, put the date on it, on that version of the project, and then you could go ahead and go back and click on this older one, and it's going to overwrite all of the materials and all the other things that you had set. Remember, it's clarifying, yes, it's going to overwrite the Lumion side, but remember, if we're overwriting the materials on this object or whatever object you have in the scene as well, in this project we just have one object, but if I had a bunch of other imported models in here, just remember that when you go backwards and overwrite what you have, it's going to overwrite that for all other scenes as well. Just remember that. So we go back in time to our older version, and we've overwritten the models, and say we're like, okay, well, I do want to go back. This is too far back. I've put too much time, and I think I can fix it. In the new one, you could just always go to the version you just saved out, and there you can go right back and it overwrites things back again. Now, I think I probably, that's not the smoothest way of explaining everything. I'm going to do another video for sure, maybe making some more diagrams like this. Maybe I can even have a link to this if you want to take a look at it. And I'm pretty sure I might be missing some things on here, but this is how I understand it, and I will make sure to double check that everything on here is correct, or if I need to update it, I'll update the link as well. But really, I put this together to help understand how the new save system works. And hopefully I didn't confuse people more, but it's really important to understand now how Lumion is organizing these things. And it'll help you understand on your way to getting into merging scenes, which is still a tricky concept that I'm going to go over. It's delicate. Once you understand this side of things, because Lumion's a little different, it starts to make more logical sense. It starts to click. But Lumion's definitely different than your typical softwares, and it takes a second. It's worth taking a moment to understand how things are being saved. So yeah, so that about covers it in this tutorial. I'll definitely be touching on this again in a more to clarify things like merging. Look at that, it says time since last save, and so 4 minutes is too long. So yeah, this is the new option. It comes in, it's overwrite. And another little thing I wanted to touch on as well. Hopefully this doesn't take too long to save. So you're overwriting that file location. You see it says all the file path there. One thing to understand too is if you go to load scene, what you're loading is the actual LS8 file. And in my case here, I have projects here that say scene not found, because I've been moving these. It's not that I've lost it, it's my fault. I've been moving these actual LS8 files and I need to relink them. So I could just go from load scene and find all of these objects again. But what's happened is I've saved it at this certain path, but I've moved it. So you're going to notice that that's kind of a new thing. And some people might find it frustrating. It was really simple before, but Lumion's really pushing a better way of managing these things. So now it's going to work a lot more like your typical software, instead of having to be kind of just really complicated like it was before in exporting versus saving. And last thing I want to cover, it's mentioned right here that all the imported save data is saved into your My Documents Lumion folder. Lumion 8. So there's a couple new ones in here. So in here, the main one is library. And I've mentioned this before in other tutorials, but this is where all your objects are located. I have something called 2 brass tables. And it has all of these 4 versions, or these 4 files are what make up the actual object. I think the MTT, I'm pretty sure the MTT is the materials, and the LIB, or is it INN? I think it's LIB is the actual geometry. Let's see, let's look at a bigger object. Base slab, wall, bench, not straight. I'm pretty sure that's the case. Materials are usually really heavy. Yes, here's a car. So the LIB is what Lumion converts the mesh, the geometry into, and the MTT is the material. And I'm guessing that this is the name associated with it, and this one of them might be the thumbnail. I'm not sure. But anyways, this is what's being updated constantly. If I change the color of this BMW here to green, it's going to change the material here. If I update the model and delete some things like seats, it's going to update this part here. So this is what's being continually updated in your library here. And this is the scenes. This was the Lumion side here. Somewhere in SVA and SPR is where all this is located. But notice that we don't have anything anymore. This is where things used to be. And this is where you used to have to grab things out and cut them out. So now Lumion has moved away from that, and everything is saved inside of LS8. I promise to touch this topic again and try to clear this up even more. But this is my attempt to take time and clarify how things are saved in Lumion, and it's going to continue this way forward. And I think it's a good move, and people who have used it for a long time might find it a little frustrated because it doesn't work exactly like it did, but it's definitely for the better in organization and simplicity. Every time you save now, you're forced to make an archive. Alright, so thanks for watching this tutorial, guys. If you have any other questions and all this deep Lumion theory I've jumped into, feel free to leave it in the comments. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe for more content like this, live streams, and for other ideas you would like to see covered, please leave in a comment as well. Alright, well, until next time, guys, thanks for watching.